Ever since human beings first walked this beautiful earth, individuals touched by spirit have been witness to and then glad reporters of a single timeless story. The awakening and transformation of the human soul. And as amazing as it may seem, despite time and distance, language and cultural differences, there has always been only one great story. It opens with the eyes of the seeker, suddenly glimpsing the possibility of a light that cannot dim. A seeker whose heart can no longer deny its own longing for a love that never dies. This longing impels the seeker to undertake a search, a journey filled with promises, perils, and pitfalls. For those who persist, there dawns a new level of consciousness. The realization of a long-awaited union with the divine. This one great story reveals a secret shared by all. Within each of us is seated, by the sacred, a compelling need to fulfill what we are all created to be. The clearer the truth of this one story, of our common celestial bond, the greater the possibility of a new understanding that can help heal our world. It is time for all of us to awaken, to not just know the truth of our one story, but to proclaim it far and wide. So that the strife and suffering born of our imagined differences can at last come to an end.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kate, and I'm going to be the host for today's class. You're joining us on a Sunday for Guy Finley Live. Hello to all of you out there in the internet land as well, on GoToWebinar and Facebook and YouTube. I'm glad you could join us today. So hopefully you got to catch the last couple minutes of that video that we just ran. That's our One Journey video. So we have a very special outreach program here at the Foundation that's actually related to this book that Guy wrote some years ago. It's called The Seeker, The Search, The Sacred. It's a very special book because that video that you just watched kind of tells you what this book is all about. It's about showing that there's this common search in humanity, and it built into being a human being to search for something, for higher meaning in one's life. And that has been within human beings for all of time, across the world, across traditions, religions, cultures, etc. And we can't be reminded of that enough. And so it's a special program that we have. If you go to onejourney.net, you'll see we have a whole website devoted to this, where it's just a big collection of quotations from mystics and masters and sages and saints and philosophers and teachers and educators throughout the world, throughout the ages. And it's really a great way to sort of explore the site and be reminded that you belong to this long lineage, this higher search for, like I said, higher meaning in your life. And so you're invited to go check out that website, onejourney.net, and we also have a newsletter that's associated with that website that we send out once a month that Dr. Ellen Dickstein writes for us, and you can sign up for that for free. Excuse me. You can also look and get more information about this book that Guy wrote, The Seeker, The Search, The Sacred, and you can even get it at a discount on that website, so we'd encourage you to do that. All right, so our format for today, if you haven't joined us before, is that in just a moment, Guy is going to come on and give an hour-long talk. We'll take a short break and we'll come back for part 2 of class, which is an open Q&A discussion with all of you here in the room and also out there on the internet. So that will be a time when you can participate and speak with Guy directly if you wish. I'll tell you more about how you can do that later on in the broadcast. We'll run for about that will run for about 90 minutes, and then we'll actually keep the broadcast open, and we'll have people here in the room can come up to the mic and share as well. So altogether, we'll go to maybe 11:15 or 11:30, not p.m. Wouldn't that be fun? And be here all day long. a.m., 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. All right, I think we're ready to get started. Just a quick note for our online audience, if you have any tech issues, you can reach out to us in the chat area on whatever platform you're on, or send an email to support@guyfinley.org, and I'll be happy to help you. You know what, I have one more announcement before we get started with class. I just want to make sure to catch anyone who happens to be tuned in now but might have to drop off later. We have 2 classes that Guy gives here each week, on Sunday mornings at 9:30 and on Wednesday evenings. And our Wednesday evening classes have been at 7 p.m. Pacific time for as long as I can remember. But we are changing that start time, not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, the first Wednesday of September, September 6th. We're changing that start time to 6 p.m. Pacific time. So just wanted to make that note for all of you out there. To set a reminder, if you're used to joining us at 7 p.m., starting next week on September 6th, we will begin at 6 p.m., and that's so that our East Coast following can tune in and not be sleepy while they watch the class. All right, I think now we're ready to get started. I'm going to go ahead and read the title and the key lesson for today, and then I'll hand it over to Guy. Our topic today is find your true spiritual center and let go of useless stress and struggle. Here's the key lesson. No one is obligated to love thy neighbor as thyself, let alone to seek and find one's place in the great circle of life. Yet, it is written in the stars themselves, all must eventually pay for what they have done against themselves or others. For justice through balance is divine law, enforced by its tireless, unfailing love, whose final consolation is a pure heart no longer capable of inflicting pain upon another or itself.
Good morning. Welcome to all of you joining us from wherever you are in the world, whatever day or time it is. I'm glad that you're here, but I want to make a quick comment about being here. There is a certain challenge, many challenges, but in this instance, the one I'm going to point out, in being a human being. And one of them is that our life, like the rising and the setting of the sun, the seasons that come and go, that there are certain routines connected to our physical existence. They are inescapable in one respect. But you must struggle mightily against having a psychological routine. Psychological routine is what you live in, whether you know it or not. When you come here and I watch you sitting, waiting like somebody for a movie to start, instead of understanding that if you're not fresh in this moment, and freshness has nothing to do with living in any routine from which you derive a particular sense of self, then you're not alive. And this work is about discovering that there is an order of life that, while it can have a routine and maintain a routine, is not derived from that routine at all. And if you examine yourself, which this talk is going to be about, as all talks are, you will see the only time that you get upset in life is when your psychological routine is disturbed, period. And then you blame the condition for your attachment and dependency upon an identity derived from an unconscious routine in which you find what you call balance, failing to see that everything you call balance derived from coming and waiting for life to happen to you so you can dream while you wait. Everything that you call balance is the antithesis of balance. And we're going to study that closely today if you are willing and interested. Do I have the right group of people?
Yes.
How many of you will admit to some extent that you have quite a bit of useless struggle in your life? Let me see the hands. Now, how do I know it's useless struggle? I'm still doing the same struggle. I might be doing even different things, but it's the same angry, anxious, conflicted, frustrated sense of self. It's just there. And it always appears in moments when what it is that I believe I should have or do or be is thwarted by something that says, I don't think so. And by the way, God never says, I don't think so. I want to talk to you about what that pain is, where it begins, how it's unconsciously cultivated, becoming a conditioned feature of your life, to its eventual reconciliation, a discovery about it that releases you from this, to use the words I want to start the talk with, this unbelievably endless juggling of life. God, juggling this against that. Time here, but no time there. What am I going to do with that? I'm going to have to juggle this in order that I have what I want take place. My finances have to be juggled with my personal life. What kind of life is that? Where every moment of your day is sitting and measuring whatever it is that you have become accustomed to with whatever it is that you see as being in conflict with that pattern, with that form of balance that you believe you've reached, never suspecting that if there's fear and anger and anxiety and worry in my life, then I've not found a way to juggle life. Life is juggling me into this matrix of misery by which I'm constantly defined by the conditions that I keep trying to juggle, failing to see that it's the conditions juggling my identity, and never understanding why it is that I never find balance. How many of you understand that? God, just I'm late for a very important date. No time to say hello, goodbye. I'm late. Always pressured. Get it done. Finish it. Doesn't matter how I talk to people. I don't even know people are there. That's the truth. I don't even know people are there. All I know is that something isn't quite balanced. I'm in pain, and I've got to somehow or other produce whatever it is missing. And for me, what's missing is always on the other side of where I am and what I'm experiencing in that moment. So it's always get through it, get through it, get through it, to get to what? A balance that is imagined, a peace that never arrives, because the pain that I'm in has no knowledge of what the nature of real peace is. So we're going to see the doctor. You ready? We'll make it quick because I've got a couple stories. And I know some of you, unfortunately, your routine with the doctor story is you think you understand them before I even start. Our heroine, Christine, having trouble again, seems to always have some trouble. Don't we always seem to have some kind of trouble? It's unbelievable, isn't it? How can a creature made in the image of God be so constantly assailed by forms of suffering that I constantly balance and yet never escape that pain? So she goes to the doctor and she's explained to him, I don't know what's going on with me. I'm with my friends. I'm always jumping into their sentences. I don't let them do anything. I see to it that it gets done the way I want. I'm constantly anxious about things that I get done, but I no longer get them done. I've got new things to be anxious about. I'm pretty irritated. I'm like a walking irritation with a Band-Aid on it. It's unbelievable. What's going on with me? Why? What's this constant discomfort? Says, let's run a few tests, but I pretty much know what it is. She comes back after the test. She goes, what is it, doctor? He says, is it a problem? It's a big problem. He said, well, what is it that's wrong with me? He said, well, you have aramus. Yep, you have aramus, which sounds a lot like erroneous, incidentally. I try to find words that are similar to certain understanding that we have. Aramus. Aramus, oh my God, what is it? Is it going to be fatal? Go ahead, please. Is it fatal? You know the answer. Well, it could be. Actually, it is fatal. Not fatal to your physical organism immediately, but it is absolutely the source of the destruction of your immunity. It is absolutely the thing that tears you down, that bends your body, that gives you the long face that it has, the tension across the eyes, the constant stress of the hands, the tapping of the foot. All of those things are connected to aramus. Well, that sounds like something important. I think I need to know what it is. Now, she's been to the doctor enough that she knows aramus is what? It's an acronym for a symptom, a psychological unconscious condition that she lives in without knowing it. That's why she goes to the doctor. She wants to understand what this pain is, not explain to herself anymore because she's seen she can't do it. She says, all right, well, let's have it. What is aramus? He said, E-R-A-M-S, aramus, everything revolves around me syndrome. Everything revolves around me. Now, we're going to look to see whether or not that's true. Some of you don't believe for a split second that that's the truth. But with examination, we'll realize and hopefully begin to integrate the knowledge that you and I have been conditioned to believe from the time that we're small, which I'll go into detail in another talk. From the time that you're small, your parents dote all of this attention on you, don't they? Or maybe they don't, and then you, not knowing what to do, dote all of your attention on the feeling of being unloved or needing it but can't find what you need. So it doesn't matter, yin or yang, which way it is. We grow up believing that we are intended, and at that age you are. You're intended to be the center of attention. A baby can't do anything. Human beings are the most helpless creature born. And so we grow up believing that, what do you think sibling rivalry is? My older brother, God bless him, tried to kill me multiple times, and I'm not exaggerating that. Because he was the be-all and end-all until this man came into the life of my mother, And for whatever reason, and it's not unnatural, a mother loves certain children more than others, and I was always the favorite. So not only did my brother have that, but my younger brother too. They all experienced the fact that they were no longer the center of attention, and instead this thing was getting the attention. And what do you do when you are born into the nest with a cuckoo bird? I kick everything out of the nest. I want to be the center. And I don't even know that I want to be the center. I've been conditioned from the very beginning to be the center of all things. Yes or no? And our culture then takes the need that a human being has unconsciously and produces the conditions technologically, sociologically, environmentally, creates conditions that you can be absolutely the center of all things, because you can be against all things that aren't in favor of what you think is true. And I'm the center again, aren't I? So think of this queer connection. Somehow or other, my resistance to life ensures that I'm the center of the world, because my center is predicated on what I don't want or what I do. And so I vacillate back and forward between the desire I have that produces what I don't want, and then what I don't want, the desire that comes forth from it. And I'm still sitting at the center of that universe, aren't I? All right, transition, setting the stage. Not too bad, 12 minutes. Repeat after me, and please don't resist this. It's fun in a way, especially if you've ever belonged to any form of a group like AA or CA or whatever it might be. You know how they start, don't you? They start with, "Hi, my name is Guy, and I'm an alcoholic." So I want you to know that all of these groups, they have their place, but really, there's a bigger group that nobody belongs to and that you belong to, but that you don't know you do. And so I'm going to bring you into that group. You ready? Yes. Hi, my name is Guy. Hi, Guy. No, your name isn't Guy. All right, put your name in there. Hi, my name is. And my life is out of balance. Where do you think addiction begins? All addiction begins with a certain resistance to seeing the truth of a certain fact, which I'll give you. And out of resistance to seeing the fact of that, I find something that I become attached to and dependent upon, that I believe is going to save me from what? No one becomes an addict of food, thought, ambition, drug, substance, distraction. No one becomes an addict to soap operas, the incessant television on, the radio in the background, always having something to do. That no one becomes addicted to tension. Without what? Without imagining that what I have imagined is going to save me from the constant appearance of an unwanted experience of myself. Every addiction circles around a sense of oneself that one does not want and does not know what to do with, and therefore invents or searches for something that will release them from that sense of imbalance. And please study this with me for a split second. How in the name of God did I become a 6-year-old who decided that chocolate cake was the solution to my pain? How did I become an 8-year-old who believed that one day when I become the prince of the kingdom of heaven, or whatever it is that I imagine, that when I get there, how did I have this place come in my mind where time and becoming was going to be the solution to everything that I'm not in that moment? How do I not want to be a child? And when does it start? And more importantly, as another topic, how am I involved in seeing to it that that child, before it's 6 years old, is already unhappy with the experience of itself? And it is. You don't know how deep this runs in this world. If you did, you would sell all. You would change your life. You wouldn't go along with the constant routine that you continue to create as a way to balance what is already out of balance. This incessant need to escape. No one finds the kingdom of heaven who tries to escape this life. Period. So here I have, if you can see it, 7 billion human beings. And every one of these 7 billion human beings has an individual sense of themselves, a center to themselves, and dependent upon ensuring that everything in that system remains in place, the routines, the conditions, the finances, everything stays where it is, or else suddenly I'm out of balance again. And then when I'm out of balance, I have to restore balance. But where do I find the balance that I'm going to restore? Someone, someplace, something has that thing that I need to balance. And so 7 billion human beings are set against each other. Aren't they? What we call groups is when men and women get together and they have found a common identity in a false balance. That's what a cult is dependency upon a balance established by a group of men and women who have gone to sleep, believing that somehow if they can embrace the same ideas and talk to each other in the same way and act the same way, that somehow proves that they are actually a whole human being, when nothing could be further from the truth. Because the very act of attachment and dependency, the very movement of identification is imbalance. Identification is imbalance. Why? Because there's no identification without imagination. And there's no imagination without a me apart from something that imagines what it'll be in time when it finally gets everything balanced again. How many of you can see what I'm saying? Why do we go at it like this? It's like going to a car wash with extra brittle brushes. It is. I'm unfinished. And more important than understanding I'm unfinished, which is what everybody suffers from, is the understanding I can't finish myself. That's what you don't see. That's what you do not understand, is that you cannot finish yourself. And this world is filled with 7 billion human beings trying to finish themselves by finishing off the condition they believe is responsible for their pain. What's the solution? How is this conflict even possible? Do you understand the original question? How can I be someone who one moment, life is just a bowl of cherries, and then it's the pits. Cherries, pits, they go together. I'm the writer, okay? Nice deep breath, transition. Here's a story. There is a school. And schools, there are a lot of schools. In some respect, the whole world is a school. And there are various levels of schools within schools, so forth and so on. And there are schools where individuals are drawn to certain things, and they're drawn there because something in them is drawn to it. Literally, as a kind of magnetic system working. So there are some places where people, for instance, in our instance, it's a school for jugglers. Now, there's a lot of people that want to go to juggle because they want to be they want to be the center of attention. And then there's some people who for whatever reason are interested in the experience of what it is when they first saw somebody juggling pins. I mean, you can see people, they get to a place where they're juggling chainsaws and chairs and lions and tigers and bears, and it's pretty extraordinary. So this is a school run by a master juggler. Now, anybody who is a master of anything becomes a master not by education of the intellectual kind, but through entering into the world that they are drawn to. That's what mastery is singularity with the source of what one is drawn to. That's what mastery is. There's no longer a self separate from what I want to master. Now, the problem is you can master certain things and still not be a free human being, because the mastery is only an introduction to the possibility of entering into a much broader world, which is what our topic is going to be about. So there's one student, and he excels, she excels, she's extraordinary, but she's reached a point where she watches the master, who from time to time will demonstrate certain things, and she realizes there's something going on that he can do. I can juggle 12 bowling pins at the same time, just like him. But when I look at his face, oh, I wish I had hours. There are certain, I cannot. But you must. No, I must not. Nothing is more beautiful than seeing someone do something difficult that's with no effort. Oh, that is attractive. Effortless attention, effortless kindness, effortless generosity, effortless selflessness, effortless sacrifice, not making a scene of themselves. And she can see that this master, he does that, and she can tell, because when she does it, she's stressed to the max. She goes to him. I can't make the step. I can see it exists. I know that when you're juggling, you are not in the same world that I am. I don't understand it. He said, to begin with, it's unique that you actually understand, because you're better than most of the students who come through here, because of what you can do. He said, but on the other hand, you recognize that there's still something in the way of you loving juggling. Said, yes, that's it. What is it? He said, well, I'll give you the words, and I have to make this brief so I can go on. Essentially, you're still trying to balance your relationship with the pins, so that you have this relationship with everything that's in the air and moving, where you are trying to concentrate in order to keep them going the way that you want them to go, so you can have the experience of juggling. He said, but the real experience is you entering into the balance of the moment of juggling. Entering into the balance of the moment of juggling, where there is no one juggling anything. There is just the movement of balance as indicated by whatever number of items are moving through the air. Now, I don't know if you know this, but there is a certain condition that you've experienced in your life. Kate was actually talking about it yesterday during our Facebook online chat, where for a split second, when she was shown something new about snowboarding, she found an entirely different level of balance, an entirely different flow that she didn't know existed, because she was always following the routine of what she believed would allow her to look good going down the slopes. Because that's a part of it. For most of us, it is. We're one of the reasons we don't enjoy sports is because we're too busy trying to look good doing a sport. You can't want to look good and be balanced. That's the very definition of being an imbalanced human being. Is trying. One day you'll understand that that's an approach. You start with trying, but trying is a curse, because it interferes with what already exists. Because trying is predicated on my idea or image of an outcome, of a result. So when I'm trying, I already have in mind a result, and the result is how I stay balanced. And then when the result doesn't measure up to what I've imagined, I'm out of balance, and then I hate the juggling pins. Sorry, my chair gets stuck behind this mat, which is difficult to balance. There we go. What we don't see, if you're following me, and never will until these, and they are, it's a proper expression, until these veils are removed from our eyes, is that the creation that we look out upon, and our eyes are not very open, they're not very aware, is that from the atomic structure, literally from the smallest possible iota of energy, all the way through the various structures that these energies make, from atoms to molecules, from molecules to cells, from cells to the organs that are organized out of those specialized cells, to the bodies that incorporate the organs, to the greater bodies of the planetary system that ensures these bodies and all of the bodies that formulated them are in a state of balance, that there is, without our recognizing it, this constant eternal state of balance being maintained at all times. What is sickness other than the imbalance of the body, because something has been introduced to it that on one hand, and in a natural sense, is going to strengthen the body. It's well known that if you break something or cut yourself, that what the healing that takes place is stronger than what was broken. Because that's how the body responds to and creates a new balance, bringing new energies to that area where there has been an imbalance produced. I don't want to go too long on that. I'm trying to get this idea across to you, that there is an organized branch from every vine, and every vine is the branch of another organ, of another order of organization. So from the kingdom of heaven all the way down, there is brought into this world and all of the creatures in it a constant action, bringing about a constant balance in everything. Where nothing moves, and physics now proves this, nothing moves that everything doesn't move. Where the observation changes the thing observed. And whatever is observed and what the observer is brought into a balance at a particular moment, and the outcome of that interaction is something new that didn't exist prior to the observer and the observed being brought together. So something is born in every one of these moments, and it is always born out of a balance between these forces, between active and passive forces. Are you following me, please? So it's a ceaseless act of balance and rebalancing, isn't it? And whenever something is acted on and brought into balance, it is brought into balance because the moment before it was out of balance. And we don't understand this either about this world. Creation by its nature is incomplete. It's incomplete because something must constantly act on it to give it life and to bring that life into balance with what has acted on it. You should go write that sentence down and study it for the rest of your life, because it indicates that there is this eternal process of perfection that is never not being acted on, and the perfection is brought about through the ceaseless balance of the will of heaven upon the will of earth. Still with me, everybody? Now, how do we know that's true? Well, we don't. It's intimated all over the place that there is another order of being, another order of self that is greater than the sum of its parts, and that other order of being that is greater than the sum of its parts oversees the parts and brings them into constant balance so that something can be born out of their rebalancing. In Scripture, in Matthew, I always wondered about this when I was reading it. Christ says, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny, yet not one of them falls to the ground without your Father knowing about it? And even the hairs on your head are numbered. So don't be afraid. You're worth more than 2 sparrows. You bird brains, you." Christ is saying, as all awakened men or women would say, you are already a part of something greater than you will ever understand, because you keep trying to meet life through an understanding of how to balance yourself so you can feel as if something cares for you. As if I belong to something. As if I need to protect something all the time. What if it is true? And you have to be the one that finds out. I certainly can't do it for you, or I can show you certain things. What if it's true that there is an intelligence that not only accounts for every single atom, for every invisible particle and their movement, that is overseeing not just the movement but the outcome of the interaction of that movement, and that the outcome of the interaction of all that movement is brought into another perfect state of balance so that the whole thing can be enacted and revealed eternally. And what if it's possible for a human being to see that? Not think it, see it. When you go out into nature, why do you go out into nature? Ever so quickly. We know that we go into nature because there is something at least innately that knows if I go into nature, there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to see something beautiful. And something in me loves beauty. Now, is the thing in me that loves beauty the thing that it sees? Or is there a relationship between the observer and the observed that is accomplished when I go into nature and allow this natural relationship, this balance between the exterior and the interior worlds to be met with something that allows them to reveal what beauty is? And beauty is the singularity. Beauty is the moment in which an individual is out of the way and allowing the natural ebb and flow of these active and passive forces of what is revealed and the consciousness that reflects it. So that the experience of beauty is actually the experience that a person has when suddenly they are balanced without trying to bring balance to themselves. And we go into nature because it's the only way, for the most part, we know how to achieve that. So in truth, if you understand what I'm saying, the world that we look to and through as we are now, why aren't I experiencing that beauty sitting in my car? Because the beauty isn't isolated to individual conditions. The condition and the consciousness capable of receiving it is what beauty is. Where's the beauty? You understand the question? What am I looking at? What are you looking at when you're driving down the road? What are you looking at? Come on, what are you looking at when you're driving down the road? We could say it a number of different ways, couldn't you? I'm in thought. I'm captured by a reaction of which I'm thinking about, any one of 1,000 things. But the bottom line is that when I'm driving down the street or walking down the street, or even when you're having a conversation with another person, what I am in that moment is someone who is experiencing the world not out there. I have no idea of anything outside of myself. I am within this field of unconsciousness, looking at my own thoughts about the world that are triggered by unconscious conditions. And then as I'm unconsciously triggered by something I don't even know has come into my consciousness, then suddenly I'm out of balance. I'm triggered. I'm uncomfortable. Why do you think thought is so incessant? Because it is incessantly chasing balance. where the center of myself is dependent on an idea of getting someplace at a certain time, and then I'm late for a date. Suddenly I'm anxious, I'm rushing, and when I'm anxious and rushing, then my mind starts talking to me about what I have to do. And the more then I find a new center in myself that's telling me what's wrong. And then the more I act out what it tells me I need to do, another thought comes in and says, but you shouldn't speed. Oh my God, you're right. And bit by bit, there's this an accruing of thoughts, and every last one seeking a center, seeking to balance itself, when every last one of them is offset center. Do you understand what I'm saying? Trying to achieve balance by identifying with something that is imbalanced itself. Trying to bring an end to conflict with something that is creating conflict. Please, do you see it with me? And all of these things are what? All of these thoughts, I try to, each I, each conditioned sense of self, and there are legion. Each and every one of them is its own world. There is the I that knows what you're like. That's its own world. And it's its own world because it already knows who you are and what you're going to do. It already has a conditioned response, a reaction just to looking to you. It is its own world, yes or no? And each and every one of these conditions' eyes, this false sense of self, is in a way a kind of a solar system of self. A solar system of self, meaning that I am the center of all things. That I is, isn't it? Now, how do I know that I is the center of all things? Come on, how do you know it? Because suddenly the planet by your name isn't circling the way it's supposed to circle. The condition I'd counted on that was at the center of this universe of my hopes and dreams and ambitions, suddenly there's an asteroid smashed into it and broke everything up. And when that center is challenged, do you understand the expression now? When that center is challenged, what does it do? It starts trying to figure out how to get all the planets, every person, every circumstance back into orbit. Get it back under control. Somehow exert force. Create a new gravity. So that as I exert this force of control or trying to change the condition, I fail to see the real condition is that I'm identified with everything in that moment, and anything that threatens the identification is a threat to the very center of myself. Please, do you see it? And here's the problem. This is why we talk often about this ever-shifting identity. I'm in one eye. Perfect example. We've talked about this ever so quickly. Here's a child. Here, sweetheart, is an ice cream going, So the pain that was the product of something creating an imbalance, I'm not getting what I want, is replaced instantaneously by a new center around pleasure. And the new center around pleasure lasts as long as the ice cream cone does. And then because it's an identification with the pleasure, then that old center creates a world in which it can give itself endless pleasure, failing to see that the very pursuit of endless pleasure is in conflict with the fact of life itself, because you can't give yourself endless pleasure. You want to know the misery of wealthy human beings? It's that they cannot give themselves what they thought they would give themselves through what they acquired. And that's why there's never enough. This endless process of trying to expand my world to get everything balanced in it so that I can be free. And I'm not free because now I am the protector. I am the accounting of all things necessary to ensure that the world I've imagined, centered around this I, that isn't I at all, remains in place. Do you see it in scale? Everybody should be able to see it. So every last one of these identities around which the whole world revolves only remains in place as long as the center remains unchallenged. And the split second it's challenged, what happens? Suddenly, I'm out of balance. Now, do you understand why I started this talking about juggling? I'm not pointing fingers here. In fact, I won't make this personal. I won't bring anything in. Just, I'll ask you to see it. How many of you know that whenever you get ready to go away, long before you go away, you start juggling all the things that you need to make sure that when you get to where you're going, you'll have everything to ensure that the I that's making that journey is happy where it was as it is where it goes. That happens to be called hell. Juggling. What about this? I better take that. Well, what about this? You know what? That's right, because that can happen. Wait a minute, I don't have room for this, that, and the other. I'm going to have to get rid of one of these things. Oh, my God. Oh, I know. I'll take another suitcase and pay $50 more. That's right. Juggle, juggle, juggle. Not understanding that something has its mouth clamped around your juggler vein, stealing from you something that is essential to your existence, which for the most part, we don't know what it is at all, because this is an impossible balancing act. Hello, my name is Guy, and I am out of balance. I believe that fear can balance my sense of security. I believe that anger can balance my sense of people not respecting me. I believe somehow or other that the onset of resistance to a condition proves that the center of that condition was valid, instead of seeing that the false center is what makes me a victim of every change that takes place in my life. You following me? But I tried to show you something to offset this idea. Imagine a novice captain taking his first sailing ship across some strait from one country to another. He doesn't know anything about the conditions he's going into. And so here comes the first storm, and the wind is out of the south. And it's blowing this way, but he's loaded the ship so that all the ballast is on the wrong side relative to the wind that's coming in. So what does the captain do? All men, all sailors on deck, thank you. Below deck, go move the ballast. Take the stuff that was there and put it on the other side, because if we don't, we're going to sink. Aye, aye, captain. And everybody goes run down and moves the ballast. But they move a little too much ballast, and the next thing the ship is leaning that way, and then the wind changes and come out of this way. Oh, what is it? All men below deck. This is our life. Whatever direction of the wind requires the ballast be changed. And we never know a moment of smooth sailing, because the ship is balanced by a consciousness that knows nothing at all about smooth seas, about a life that doesn't have in it this endless juggle. Jesus, one day I pray that you see it. You wake up in the morning and your mind is already juggling the effects of yesterday's imbalance. So that my life is spent juggling thought, living in fear of whatever it is that tells me if this doesn't unfold the way it's supposed to unfold, then I'm going to be out of balance. I'm out of balance the moment I listen to any fear tell me what to do about the moment I'm in. Are we seeing a big picture? Yes. What's the point? Perfect balance already exists. Some woman, I think her name was Sue, I'm not sure, asked me, I think it was during Insight Timer, because I was talking a little bit about this. Well, how do you explain Maui, she said, and the pain and the suffering? And I answered her as best I could, given I've only got 30 seconds to give an answer. I said, well, how do you explain a man like Viktor Franklin who goes into a Nazi concentration camp and comes out a completely different order of human being? See, the problem is, and I only spend a moment on this, we have a very a very poor understanding of the nature of time. For us, the only time there is the time of feeling unbalanced and then what I must do to find equilibrium. That's time for me. Time is becoming for me. Time is protecting what I have become. That's what time is. But in the instance of all these conditions that take place around the world where there's no question there is this immense suffering, from immense suffering comes immense insight. From immense suffering comes the understanding of one's complicity in that suffering, through an awareness that doesn't just span the moment the suffering is occurring, but that can see the suffering has come out of an imbalance itself, and that I have been, you have been, and remain a part of this unbalanced world, believing somehow or other that I can insulate myself from this unbalanced world, that I can separate myself and prove myself superior to the conditions that I judge. So I'm going to become a climatologist. I'm going to become a Greenpeace person. I'm going to do something to deal with the fact that I know I'm somehow responsible for what I see, and yet I don't know how to bring about the balance other than to take an opposing side. And no opposition to imbalance can bring about balance. That's what I meant by the shifting of ballast from one side of the boat to the other. Do you know when civilizations collapse, it's exactly the same thing when the possibility of you having a soul collapses. Do you know when civilizations collapse? It's when they go a little bit right, and they go a little bit left. And then they go a little bit further right, and they go a little bit further left. And then as a result, they go all the way right. And then as a result, they go all the way left. And it's done. Collapse. The end of the opposites is seen because there's nothing left with which to try to balance them. As within, so without. And you need to see this. The depth and breadth of one's impatience, the hatred of the moment, the strength behind that suffering, saying this wouldn't be this if it weren't like that. All of that is yin completely, yang completely, active completely, passive completely. No marriage, no balance. No marriage, no balance. This is why it is said, and it happens to be true, and I'm only going to touch on the phrase. It's said that we as human beings are third force blind. We are third force blind. How can there be balance without something ensuring that what is active and meets what is passive brings about something that isn't just a stalemate between the forces? Perfect force active, perfect force passive. How can there be anything but a stalemate if in fact that's the truth of these conditions? The will of heaven working on the will of earth. How could there ever be a new birth unless something is there in the midst of that marriage, a third party? That which reconciles that moment. That's what third force blind means. I can't see that there already exists something that knows what balance is and that invites me into balance through the awareness it gives me of this stress and strain and anger and fear. But I always am captured by that I whose center is challenged, and then I become the instrument of that I instead of me becoming an instrument of that moment where balance is being brought to my attention as being upset, and allowing the divine to bring about the new balance, the new man, the new woman. The reconciliation of the will of heaven and the will of earth. That would be a balance, wouldn't it? Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Christ is saying there is already a natural balance between what is timeless and what is in time. Between that which is perfect and that which is imperfect, that which is complete and that which is incomplete. And the only way that which is incomplete, the branch relative to the vine of Christ, to the vine of the divine, The only way that branch finally enters into the completion that it's already a part of is by allowing that divine life to bring about in it the realization of its relationship to that overseeing unity. Do you see? Yes. 5 minutes. So what do you think? I'll spend the last 5 minutes on the exercise. What do you think the exercise would be? Please, out loud.
See where you're out of balance.
Yes. Look, do you understand this much? If I'm trying to balance my life according to what I believe is out of balance, I am in conflict with life itself, because there is a self within me that believes it knows what balance is. So we go as human beings, we're in a constantly suppressed state, constantly suppressed as individuals, suppressing the law, suppressing this because I need that to get this balanced. But the problem is I'm not supposed to want this because that's bad for the world. So I have to somehow or other balance this imbalance and come up with some idea by which I can actually have and be everything that I want to have and be balanced. Versus repression. What do you think the world constantly repressing. Why? Because in order to make sure the world stays balanced according to whoever is leading it at the time, this is how you balance things. And is the world balanced, or has it never been more polarized? And out of the incessant deepening polarization comes what? The incessant deepening need to balance it according to what I believe balance is. And that's what you call the shifting back and forth between political parties. The constant religious infighting, struggling to try to prove that this is the way and that's the way. That's the end of civilization. And you can't stop that, by the way. That can't be stopped. It's impossible. But out of that can come a man or a woman who becomes a new man or a new woman. And every time a new human being is born in the broader scheme of time that we cannot see, all that takes place in time is acted on by that change in that individual in that moment. It is a raindrop compared to a stream compared to a river, but it is real. And that's not even the point. The point is whether or not I'm honest and truthful to this need, this longing that I have. I want to have equilibrium. I don't want the way you look at me to send me into a tizzy, telling me I've got to do this and that, and then listening to that, and then telling me what to do about the imbalance, and going down this dark tunnel that leads to nowhere but more torment, because that's all that can happen when I try to balance my own life. In order for there to be just the beginning of this journey to the center of one's true self, it has to begin with an active awareness of both worlds. Not my thought about that world, what you did, and my thoughts about it, because again, what are my thoughts trying to do? Trying to balance the disturbance produced by what you did to the center of my solar system, my sense of self. You ruined it. Now I have to figure out what to do with you, get you to see me the way I want you to see me. Is that balance? But for us it is, isn't it? It takes time to do all that, and I can be very busy down that road. No, somehow or other there must be an active, meaning present awareness of not just what is acting on me, but what is being acted on in that moment. Active awareness of both worlds. And the truth is, as you will see, I say both worlds, but they are not both worlds. They are a single world presently divided by a consciousness that believes what it sees is other than the consciousness that experiences it. And the balance already exists. The third party is already there. It's called love. Perfect reconciliation. that which from out of which comes these opposites, but because from out of it which comes, it is always seeing to their reconciliation. But you'll never know that reconciliation. The reconciliation that is the ceaseless creation of the true center of yourself. I've tried in this talk to show you that there already is a true center. And that true center is the outcome, the expression, not just everything coming out of it, but everything coming back into it. That's true center. I tried to prove that to you as best I could and show you at the same time what? False center. False center that believes it can balance itself. One day, God willing, you will come up with a fear and anxiety. Something will take place as it always does. And in that moment, you'll recognize this is not the invitation to rebalance my life. This is the revelation of where something in me came into this moment unbalanced. Isn't that what karma is? Karma is the realization of where it is that I am out of balance. Isn't that what karma is? So the moment of karma is not a punishment. The moment of this realization of I am out of balance, meaning I came into this moment believing that I'm the center of the world, that you should serve me, that they should be like this, that nothing should happen that I don't want. I came into this restaurant demanding things without knowing I'm a demanding person. And here's the karma. And the karma is the act. It is the grace of God. Because the karma is saying, can you feel this? Can you be aware of this? Because if you can be aware of this, then you realize the condition didn't produce the experience. The experience is the outcome of the condition and the consciousness that met each other in that moment. And you can't balance that. Will you let it be done? Will you let it be done? And every moment that you will dare to let it be done, meaning see whether or not you, through insight, can discover the nature of that imbalance, you'll discover something was waiting underneath it with a lesson about that imbalance that you could have never given yourself, because it comes to you through the light that is born in that moment where these opposites are married. And you are participating in that marriage. Not just participating, you are the place of that marriage. Let's take a break, come back and have our dialogue.
Okay, hello everyone. I see that my video is not coming up, so just a second. Let me see if I can figure this out. Sorry about that. Let's try this. Can you see me now? Hopefully, yes. Eric, can you confirm? Yeah, okay, great. Thanks, Eric. All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of our class. We are going to have an open Q&A, discussion, dialogue, etc. with Guy right now. And you can go ahead and if you know that you wish to speak with Guy, at any point you can raise your hand if you're on the GoToWebinar app. Just go ahead and click or tap the hand icon once and your hand will go up to the top of the queue, and then I know that you wish to speak with Guy, and when your turn comes I will unmute you and then you can unmute yourself on your end. If you are on Facebook or YouTube, you can also write a note in the chat area. And I am trying to monitor those and I will grab your note. I do have already actually 4 written questions for Guy. So we'll have a pretty good discussion here in just a moment. I just want to make one quick announcement. If you aren't familiar with Life of Learning Foundation, we are a nonprofit located here in Southern Oregon. We have classes here several times a week with Guy. You are welcome to come visit us anytime. We have an upcoming Weekend of Wisdom in September. If you go to our website, just to the events page, you'll find out more about that. In fact, you'll find out about all of the events that we have going on here at the foundation. And if you would like to support us in our work, we are a nonprofit, as I mentioned, and we would certainly appreciate any donations that you would make. And thank you to all those who have supported us so generously throughout the years. We like to, every so often, offer sort of like a little bonus for you when you make a donation. And this month we are featuring a special bonus program called To Touch the Timeless Mind. And if you were to make a donation of $10 or more, you would get immediate access actually to this 2-part audio program from a conference that Guy gave some years ago. And they're just wonderful talks. And you can learn more about that if you go to guyfinley.org/timeless. You'll read a little bit more about those talks, and you'll also see buttons right there to make a donation. And do know that all of the funds that we receive from your donations and the purchase of products in our store and joining our wisdom school, all of that goes right back into helping this work, helping us just get these ideas out as far as we can into the world. If you find them helpful for yourself, please do help us help others as well. And all donations are tax deductible in the US. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us on our contact page. All right, before we get started here with the Q&A, I know Guy wishes to read a special writing that he had prepared for today, so let's go ahead and bring him on, and I will turn it over to you, Guy.
Thank you, Kate. I do have a special writing that I'm going to set the stage for as a quick summary of what we've covered. That is an introduction to this writing. First, to recognize that these moments of conflict in our life are, what was the doctor's diagnosis of Christine's problem? Aramus, which is what? That's all you need to know when you're angry, anxious, frightened, stuck. Everything revolves around me. Because when you can start to see the condition wouldn't exist without you demanding that the system of that particular I that's in that moment, keep that in place, you'll start to realize that the prescription, the antidote is in the venom. You'll see it. The problem isn't the condition. The problem is that there's a certain I whose conflict is constant anytime anything challenges its assumed identity. And in that split second to realize that this pain is because everything revolves around me. I am the center of all things. Then that awareness is itself already the existence of another understanding. And you can see that if this pain is because I'm the center of all things, then obviously I can't continue to believe or empower this idea that I am that. I'm going to have to let it go. And it's when you start to let it go that you start discovering that already there with you is a new center. A new center is already there. We talked about it the whole time. It already exists. The balance constantly established, reestablished. When you do not understand that, this special writing is the outcome. So the outcome, as described, points to the solution to that pain. Here it is. The false self, forever struggling to protect the dream of its own imagined importance, cares nothing for how it sabotages itself or victimizes others to prove its imagined life is real. All that matters to this unconscious nature is that life validates its unrelenting need to be seen as significant, which means its first action, when faced with any moment that challenges the image it has of itself, that it clings to for dear life, is to try and protect itself from whatever threatens its precious sense of itself. This dark nature, inseparable from the demands it makes on life, is incapable of humility, compassion, or remorse. It loves itself and itself only. If there's a shred of decency in you left, you understand that that form of self-love is the love of being the center of all things, because from that my identity remains intact, and it doesn't even matter to me if something threatens that identity, because I can just create a new universe made in the image of a new I that can start the world over by ensuring that you suffer for messing with my world. What if it's true that there is no moment in which something isn't acting upon you to show you where it is, that not only have you come into the moment with a certain karma, meaning with a certain incomplete state of oneself and one's understanding, so that the moment that challenges that self and its understanding is there as your advocate, is there as a cosmic intelligence to help bring you into a new relationship with the center that has no conflict with anything. That's what we're looking at. If you have a longing for that, you're in the right place, because we're not going to give up, we're not going to stop until we understand this so thoroughly that this understanding is enshrined, is awakened into this man and this woman, and it's always there, looking at every moment through the new eyes and new ears of a new heart centered in a new life. Over to you, Kate, for our questions and answers and dialogue. And Chrissy's already coming up to the stage, but let's take the first one in the queue.
Yeah, I actually have 6 written questions now and a hand up. Did you say we'll start with the first written question?
Just take the first one, and then we'll go to Chrissy, and then we'll start in the batting cage.
All right. Okay, here we go. So this is a question that came in from Jan. She says, hello. In Guy's latest weekly key lesson email, he makes reference several times to the law of attraction in such a way that it is obvious he conceives of it in a very different way from that, the way that it's been popularized by books like The Secret. I wonder if Guy could explain what the real law of attraction is, please.
Whitman said it best, perhaps. The central urge of every atom is to return to its divine source. Christ alludes to this in the prodigal son. The idea is enshrined through all true spiritual ideas. And I could almost just go into another talk here about this, but obviously I can't. From one came two, from 2 came 3, from 3 came all of the infinite creations. From 1 came 2, from the 1 came the opposites, from the opposites came the Trinity, from the Trinity all things that are created and reconciled to the one from out of which they come. This is the great law. So the great task, the great journey is from 3 to 2 to 1. From that which is all the time being disturbed into understanding the opposites that produces the disturbance when my identity is shaken, back to the one in which there is an undifferentiated relationship to the moment, because there's no need for a difference between who I am and what the moment is. I'm going to say it again, because at long last, and this is the definition of joy, there is no longer a difference between myself and the moment that I'm in. That is joy. That is security. That is what this journey is, and that is the secret. It is sown into this heart. It never stops acting. We are drawn to what we're drawn to for the process of discovering what lies innate in this consciousness, until at last we've expired all the individual relationships and realize they are a fractal of this broader relationship in which we're brought to realize the truth of ourselves. Over to Chris on stage.
Hi, I'm Chris. So I have a really good example of today's talk that happened to me yesterday. So I went to make dinner and I didn't have in my refrigerator what I wanted, or I actually had it, but it wasn't good. So I hurt my foot a couple weeks ago, so I had to go down to my garden, which really isn't that far, like maybe, 200 feet. So anyways, I got my little basket and went down to my garden to pick some eggplant. And this nature was fussing and fuming, and it got what it needed, and it was trekking back, and it's hot, and I shouldn't have to do this, and my foot hurts, all the nonsense the mind says. And I was walking up this little path that was absolutely beautiful. It was shady, there were all kinds of pretty plants. And I just came back to myself, and I thought, this is so ridiculous that I've given myself over to this negativity. But the thing is that, okay, so there were the opposites. I didn't have what I wanted what I wanted, but the reconciling force was coming back to myself, coming into the moment, and then remembering to come awake reconciled the whole thing. I could just drop it, and I could just be in the beauty of the moment that I didn't see the moment before because I was in relationship with the wrong thing.
Over to you, Kate.
All right, Larry has his hand up, so I'm going to unmute you, Larry, and you can unmute on your end. There you go.
Hello, Guy. How are you?
I'm good, Larry. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really touched to be here. Every time I listen to you, I say, well, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to listen to the whole thing. And then by the end, I'm touched so much that I have to express something. And I feel like I understand now that I've created my own universe with planets perfectly placed, and don't push my planets out of shape, or else I have a means of handling that offense in some way. And if I can't do it, I realize I've created a religious God that will get you for me. And I realize that that's all my creation, not reality. And I don't want that universe anymore. I want to be able to be a person that is in reality, to creation,
Yes.
to the right thinking.
Yes. So everything, Larry, that you said is true and good and accurate. I would just add one thought for you, is that there is this mistaken, and it is an important distinction. So I created this and I created that. No, Larry did not create this and Larry did not create that. The same consciousness that is dissatisfied with owning an acre and a half of vegetables is the same consciousness that doesn't want to walk down to get the abundance that I have, is the same center of self that wants the pleasure without any problems. And we all are occupied constantly by a self-centered I. This is the true definition of selfishness, isn't it? I live from a center, but I did not create that center. I have fallen into the maker of it. It's the fallen maker that I spoke of. I have fallen into a world made, God help me, in my own image, and it's not my own image. It is the image that this consciousness has developed through its conditioning over millennia. And until I recognize that, I will be a captive of that until at last this separation of the wheat from the chaff can begin as it's intended to. So good, Larry. Go to work. See more.
Yes, thank you.
You're wet. That's a friend that all of us should have made in high school and college. Seymour.
All right, thank you, Larry. And Guy, I now have a written question that I'm going to read that came in from Edna. Edna says, my question is, what to do with the either perceived or actual experience of a gap between myself and what life is asking of me? In other words, when I have an intellectual knowing or sense of what is called for, while also experiencing a block to taking that action.
This little story has a point, so don't push it away with the opening sentence. I'm 74. I've been playing golf since I was 50, 24 years. And what little time I have to play and practice, I am quite dedicated at it because I love what the game teaches me about balance. And yesterday was probably the worst day in my life playing golf. It was extraordinary. People who play golf, or anybody that does certain things, there are times when you're just so completely lost. There's no way. And that sense of being lost is accompanied by what in the name of God have I been doing all this time that would produce an ungodly condition like this, where I can't even hit an iron straight. And so a person in those moments is filled with a sense of uselessness, of despair, of anger, disappointment. But when a person, such as yourself, I will trust, if not today, then certainly through your work, you realize there has never been a moment in my life that I haven't been brought to the point beyond which I cannot go. And when I stayed at that point beyond which I could not go, I was shown something, maybe not about the point that I was stuck in, but about the self that was stuck there. So that everything about that moment was for the liberation of that self, not to become a better player. That's my answer, Edna. To understand that those circumstances under which a person is in complete conflict with everything the moment seems to be denying them is not being denied by the moment. They're being invited by it to discover something about themselves they could never discover in a million years unless they brought themselves to that moment with the intent of discovering or going through what they had to learn whatever it is that they longed to learn. On we go, Kate.
All right, well, this next question is going to go perfectly with what you just said. This came in from Carl. Carl says, Guy, my question today is more of a question to yourself, as I think I would get a good perception of how to use it in my own day-to-day. You have noted plenty of times over the years your love of golf. Particularly, what is it that draws you about golf? And when you are playing golf, are you always fully present? I practiced the exercise you gave me, remembering myself and the Father of the Divine while bodybuilding. And let me tell you, it is hard. I have a bodybuilding contest this January, so it's a mental battle. Is it wrong to want to win this contest and come in first place? And also to achieve, as you noted, to have a first and seek the kingdom of heaven and everything is in right order? I'm just working hard with this idea.
I'm glad for you, Carl. Order already exists, does it not? We may not see it again because for us, things are out of order. We see a world on fire. We see a world filled with violence. We see a world with left and right polarized. We see this world and we think to ourselves, where's the order in this? Because we cannot see that out of this disorder is the awareness of the creation of it, the cause of it. And in that, if I'm present, suddenly I'm no longer complicit in the continuity of that. Yes or no? If I see it. So that's over a period of time. That's my favorite One of my favorite things Blake ever said, the roaring of lions, the surging of the seas, these things all unfold. See the world in a grain of sand. All of these things unfold in an order of time that this mind can't grasp, because this mind is bound by the time between what I want and when I'm going to get it, or what I don't want and how do I avoid it. That's where our mind is bound. So we do not have, like I said, we're third force blind. You cannot see the whole without participating in the whole. And the whole is always timeless. And what is timeless involves everything unfolding in it. You can see that eventually. So Carl, why is there a problem unless, and you've alluded to it, I'll just help you see it more clearly, I've got things screwed up. Things are out of order. I'm not lifting and doing the work I am in order to learn and discover and build and discover where this road leads me, what it teaches me about myself. I'm doing a lot of this because I want to be seen as someone who excels at this. And the minute I want to be seen as someone who excels in this, I'm in the hell of not being seen that way. And when I'm in the hell of not being seen that way, I'm going to discipline myself. Yesterday was the first time in the history of my life that I actually stopped trying to make something happen relative to golf. As a rule, my mind is go through it, go through it, go through it, go through it, which is a form of will that is intelligent because you have to do what you don't want to do to discover something. But there comes a point in time where you can recognize this is out of order. And you're out of order because you're trying to establish the order that you imagine should happen, which is if I just try hard enough, I'll win. No, trying at that point is a self-defeating act that feeds itself with more self-defeating acts, proving to that consciousness that you're a captive of, that, see, you're right to feel useless, to feel hated, to feel worrying. So Carl, first things first. You're not going to stop Carl from wanting to be, I don't know if this is part, I guess if you're a bodybuilder, I'll be back. You know, I want to be Arnold. Here's the guy, not only become a bodybuilder, but somehow the Terminator, you know, a governor. That's me. Big body, beautiful mind, people loving me. No. Have a big love for God, Carl. Let that be there when you feel the fear come up that you're not going to win. When you feel the frustration take you over, when you see the hatred of the condition, how in the name of God does a human being come to a place where they're hating life because life is showing them where they came in with a center demanding what it does? Demand is a form of hatred yet realized. Demand is a form of hatred yet actualized. Can you see that? Let's go on, Kate.
All right, I'm going to bring in this question that came in on YouTube. Guy, this is Mr. Kumar from Zambia. What I understand from your books and audios in summary is be insensitive to all that is happening without giving it a thought, and you will attain peace. But how as humans is it possible to be insensitive, given that we are humans with all feelings and senses?
Oh, Kumar, Mr. Kumar, hi. Zambia. I just love that we're all around the world. So here's the deal, Mr. Kumar. Nothing is more insensitive than a human being who believes everything revolves around him or her. No one is more insensitive than that. Because what am I sensitive to when I believe the world revolves around me? Anything that pulls on my particular solar system, threatening to prove that I'm not the sun that I've taken myself to be. That's where I am. I'm pure insensitivity. Real sensitivity, Mr. Kumar, is seeing how insensitive it is to be the center of my own life. Real sensitivity is inclusive, not exclusive. Real sensitivity is my awareness of another person's pain as inseparable from my own. That's the Good Samaritan, Mr. Kumar. Real sensitivity is realizing I am not the only one who suffers. That's real sensitivity. But the only way I can have real sensitivity is what? If I'm aware of both worlds at the same time. I reject you because you're negative. And when I reject you because you're negative, it's because I don't want negativity to come into my world. So I'm resisting you. Can I be sensitive and resist anything? Can I? It's impossible. So no, Mr. Kumar. I want to have the sensitivity that costs me the sense of myself that doesn't want to be disturbed. I didn't get this into the notes, but I'm going to put it in here now. I was thinking that in one respect, third force blind, you could say, but I was hesitant to use the word in the talk, I wouldn't have had time. You could say that in one respect, true faith is third force. You could say that. True faith is third force. Why? Because true faith is the understanding that I am a participant in a universal, celestial, divine world as made in the image of God. True faith allows these opposites to resolve and reconcile themselves. I don't do it. I let it be done. Not thy will, not my will, but thy will be done. That's true faith, isn't it? That's what third force is understanding the reconciliation is built into the conflict of these opposites, where I discovered the opposites weren't in conflict at all. They were working and brought together for the sake of becoming something new. But when faith becomes an idea, when faith becomes what I rely on to get me through the moment, then I have another center of gravity, another center of self that believes it can save itself through what it has faith in. And there is no saving oneself from anything you have faith in, because to have faith in something means you are apart from the thing you have faith in. Joy is understanding the activity of faith as being part of the freedom that God gives you to yield yourself to her life. If you understand that, do you? On we go, Kate. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Maybe one day I'll be there and visit you. I want to go to a lot of places. Go.
We have two questions left. Here's one from Beatrice, and then we'll see if we have time for the last one. Beatrice says, thanks, Guy. There's an umbilical cord connecting us with the ancestors. We are deeply conditioned by them and by the current surrounding people and culture. We seem to wake up and break this thread while wrestling with it and while us impacting descendants. All this happens simultaneously, and the layers covering our real identity are shed. Your thoughts on this, please?
I've described to you before, and have done so again today, but I will touch on it briefly, that when it is said in Scripture, East and West, that we are made in the image of the Creator, we should be able to understand that the branch relative to the vine, that the vine is itself a branch relative to a greater vine. And so that in scale, if we understand it, the creator of this world is not God himself. It can be said that in one respect, God himself did not create anything, but produced conditions from out of his indivisible nature, that which could bring into existence the creation that reveals something of that nature. And so it is that we can see, as we look at it, the embryo going through the various generative processes, that we begin much as a frog, a tadpole. And we move through these various stages of levels of being, each and every creature an expression of a level of being, and each and every creature endowed with a consciousness relative to its level. That we can see that all of these things are formed around us like nesting dolls, so that the root sits this essential organism that becomes according through time what creation needs to make of it in order to serve the planet. But hidden in that nature there is something else. So can you see, to start with, that I am the embodiment of all nature. Can you see that? That's why it said Adam and Eve, they knew the creatures. They didn't have to, they could give them names. They knew everything about their nature. And in the old teachings, to know the name of something was to have authority over it, in the old teachings. So am I the history of all that has come before me. My consciousness is the history of consciousness. That's why it's filled with these things that it's filled with. And the history of this consciousness is conditioned. And it's conditioned itself over time by trying to prove that the center of itself, as it imagined, was actually the real center. And everything that threatened it became the next war, became the next disparity, the next conflict between myself and the world around me. I am this consciousness, the embodiment of that. But within that darkness there dwells a light. There dwells a reconciling force capable of bringing all that has been into the moment. That's what the real karma is. It's not individual. We're individual expressions of a karma working itself out through individuals. This consciousness to be brought into the will of heaven, that it might become aligned with and therefore perfected by that relationship. We as individuals are the individual instruments of that relationship, but we don't know it because we're always at war with God. We're always at war with that which we think is making war on us. Heaven does not make war on humanity. Heaven invites humanity to join it in a new kingdom where it can know itself as part of what is heavenly. So therefore, this umbilical cord that you've described in one respect is accurate, Beatrice, and everything you've said is accurate. But let's understand that this umbilical cord isn't the true relationship to our ancestors. This umbilical cord is all of the conditioning that has taken place with our ancestors, not understanding the true umbilical cord, the vine and the branch. Let's go on, Kate.
All right, do you want to take this last question?
I do, and then we'll have students up.
All right, this came in from Mary. Hello, Guy. The concept of seeing both sides of an imbalance is understandable. However, if you could give specific examples as to how that can help find specific solutions for the imbalance within. For example, a person who cannot pay rent will be evicted and can potentially become homeless. People whose homes and belongings were burnt down in Maui and all over the world may not have the means to rebuild and start over. Even your foundation needs certain requirements to run smoothly. If the electricity isn't paid, for instance, the talks would not be able to be recorded. So in each of these cases, one can see the imbalance, but what is your suggestion as far as the how to solve these, how to bring back the balance? Thank you.
Psychological fear doesn't exist without time. Time is the space between what I have and what I don't, what I fear I'll lose and what I need. That's psychological time. Out of psychological time, born of wanting and not wanting, of a mind divided without knowing it is divided and seeking to complete one opposite through the imagined other, is the source of conflict and stress. As long as I allow, listen to, identify with, and then act from any form of stress, fear, anxiety, rushing, I may believe what that mind has told me, that this is the way to balance this imbalanced moment. But I am listening to what has produced the imbalance, telling me how to save myself from the experience of being identified with a consciousness that has no balance in itself whatsoever. And that mind, Mary, loves to think about things. Oh, how it loves to measure what's taken place in the world, worrying about these people and that people and imagining a time when this or that is going to come. And when it does, how am I going to balance that? Instead of seeing in the moment, the very act of imagination is an imbalance in itself. And it loves to think that because it creates a center to myself who knows what is good and what isn't good, what's bad, what's not right. All of that I am the God of. I know it all. And I don't want to be vocally punitive, Mary, with what I'm saying to you. I just want you to see how occupied I am with everything that produces in me a disturbance, and how the endless pursuit of bringing an end to that disturbance produces another endless disturbance where I'm always for and against something. Let me start at the beginning. Let me start at the beginning, Mary. If I could see that taking thought, as Christ said, can add no cubit to my stature, then how futile it is to take thought to figure out what to do about something that I might not even be involved in directly. Take no thought for tomorrow. Consider the lilies of the field, all these things, again, east and west. If I understood them, I'd realize this is the moment. There is no other moment for me. My wife is negative. My husband is angry. My best friend has just told me a lie, bald face, and I know she's lying. But I also know she doesn't know she's lying, because she's trying to protect the center of her life by ensuring that I see her the way she wants to be seen. Now, to see both worlds at the same time is for me to know that this person is lying, and whether or not I say something to them is immaterial. What's material is whether or not I'm aware of the suffering that she's in that moment, causing her to tell that lie. Because then I can act from compassion, even if it's correction. Then I can act from understanding, even if it's born out of recognizing this person may not understand what I'm going to say at all, but it must be said in order for me to have a balanced relationship with the moment. Then you're living. You are the Good Samaritan. You are the person on the road who sees the person lying there beaten, and who doesn't walk by because you're on the way to ensuring the center of your little church or synagogue or your little circle of self, your center, that it's all in place. You have time because you're not in time. You're present because you're not being pushed or pulled. And to be present costs something. And you know what to be present costs? It costs you being the center of the universe. Because you're in a new center that takes into consideration everything that's part of that moment that you're in. And when you participate, Mary, in everything that is the part of the moment, you'll understand what part you should play and what you should not. And there'll be no question as to it. And if there's question, then that'll be part of what you have to resolve as well, by seeing something new again and again and again. That would be my answer, Mary. Anything else, Kate?
Nope. Handing it over to you and those in the room, if anyone wishes to speak.
Patricia is on her way to the microphone. You're welcome to stay, everyone. We have a dialogue, an exchange, people sharing their experience, and it's quite valuable.
My name is Patricia. Mary's question just now reminded me of a wonderful show I saw, I guess on Nova or one of those public channels. And it was about at the end of World War II, when all these millions and millions of people were displaced. I mean, the Jews coming out of the prison camps, the horrible things that were happening, and even countries, all the countries throughout the world, the families were all displaced, and you couldn't think of worse conditions. And it showed just in a few years how things all rebalanced. And it showed, and it interviewed a lot of Jewish people from the camps. And they were in nice homes. They had families again. It showed how life worked itself out. And it was really a show that really impressed me because you couldn't think of anything more horrible than those times. So.
In my opinion, nothing is more beautiful than a person who has gone through something horrific and come out with a higher understanding of not just themselves, but the moment that was required for them to be reborn into that new understanding. That's what my wife was alluding to.
Hello, my name is Ellen. So this talk made me understand something a little better. The talk made it very clear that the essence of this self-centered life is fear. And the more we try to relieve ourselves of the fear, the more we try to do, the more off balance we get. And then at the end of the talk, Guy talked about this reconciling force, and he said this ceaseless reconciliation and balance is love. And, you know, that's it. That's why love casts out fear. It's that the balancing that removes the basis of the fear.
There's no fear in unity.
So I just applying that to Ellen's life. She is obviously, well, like all of us, out of balance and in fear and wanting love, but everything she's done to find it
has pushed it away.
Has pushed it away, exactly. And I can see that she is third force blind because, you know, we always hear love is all around us. Guy explained today what that means. Love is always there. That reconciling force is always there, and we don't see it, and our demands that life go the way we think it should go keeps us more and more unbalanced. And to just allow the divine, which means to give up control, which is all our lives we've been taught we have to get control. But to just give it up is to make an opening for real love to come in.
Come on, Tony. This is true, but I'm not going to go into it because of all the mechanical thought and imagination that is connected to our so-called religious life. What was the act of Christ giving up his life other than the great rebalancing? And if Christ is I and I am in Christ, then am I not asked myself to be part of that great rebalancing, going through the exact same thing in scale? And the answer is yes. For you to see or not?
Good morning, my name is Tony. So I love this talk because it's, I mean, it had so much in it, but it's so relevant to something that I experienced recently. We get asked to participate on the talks, on the classes online and stuff. And this past week, I had an experience that was, it just really shook me to my core, so to speak. I had prepared my talk, and I had done it in these stages, and I really knew I was going to hit this ground running, and I had this all set. And so, make a long story short, it starts at 5 o'clock, and right at 5:01, or just before 5 o'clock, all I heard was Kate say, "Okay, let's bring Tony on." And I go to look up, and I have my talk ready, and I get a ping on my phone, which I should have never looked down, but I look down, and it's the caregiver that's got my mom in her control saying, "I'm sorry, I have to leave right now because my daughter's in the hospital," whatever. And then the shock of that sent me into hyperspace. I don't have to be on. And then I look up, and I realized that the talk that I had, that was supposed to be here in front of me, was not my talk at all. It's just a mess. So I am in shock now. And but all of this stuff that I'm saying to you is really of no importance at all. Because what I really got through that experience, which I haven't gone back to even try to watch what I did or how I came across, because that's not the point. But your talk today explained everything that I went through.
The panic.
Yes, the panic and everything that came after, and then realizing something that's really important. When you say, that love and God is present at all times, I was able to see that, and this nature chose not to enter that moment.
That's correct.
Yes, it chose to instead be God. I gotta fix. That decision is what caused all of the problem for me. Tony was completely unraveling in this moment. Now keep in mind, Tony has a pretty good opinion of his public speaking. I've done public speaking. This is a piece of cake. And I've been coming to this thing, and I've been reading the books. All of that nonsense. In that moment, choosing, entering life as it is the only choice. Anything else, well, it's just, you can't even, there's no real, I don't want to try to explain it in words because, quite frankly, I don't want to honor that. And I get very passionate about everything that I do. Seldom do I get involved in anything, even planting a rose bush, that I don't put everything into it. But the only thing I walked away with, and it was painful, because the end result of that, you're struggling with this nature that's telling you what you should have looked like, what you should have done, all of this nonsense. The only resounding thing that I was left with when I realized I turned away from you again was to tell Doug to put me back on that schedule as fast as you can. So I really want to thank you for what you experienced playing golf, because obviously, we might have never had this talk. I don't know how else to say it, had you not gone through the pain of that, because you said it here today. Going through that pain, going through the degree of that pain gives you the ability to see something you would not otherwise see.
Not otherwise see.
So thank you very much. And thanks to Eric for the points that he worked on, because that's the only thing I had to work with.
Good morning, my name is Eric. And our minds make everything pretty complicated, including spirituality. And the spiritual Beatle, George Harrison, I just discovered a song by him from his solo career in the 70s, late 70s, I think. And it was just an extremely simple lyric that he said. And I think he was authentic, seeker to some extent, to whatever extent. And he said, "All I have to do is to love you." That's it. Now, of course, the conundrum is, what does that actually mean? It's not the love that the world has just completely ruined that word and everything associated with it. But the love that we're learning about here, which is actually connected to the prodigal son, which is the return, the work to return. To return home, to return to the present moment, which is where God is. And then every other complicated question, all I have to do is to love you, to work to return. And then every other complicated question, or everything is answered downstream from there. Only we go to sleep, obviously, and forget that and believe that we have to rebalance ourselves.
What was Christine suffering from? Aramus. And what does aramus stand for? You were awfully quiet when you said that. Ordinarily, you're quite voiceless. Everything revolves around me. Your pain is of no interest to me. What you're going through, I don't really care unless it affects what's revolving around me. What's happening to me in the moment, it's a nightmare because it's out of orbit. I've lost the center of myself, failing to see that the very sense of stress and anxiety is the proof that I entered into the moment from a wrong center, a wrong self to begin with. So simply put, if you catch yourself juggling stuff and you're stressed, let everything fall down. See what happens. Just see what happens. There's no rule that says you can't pick them up again. The mind is filled with opposite. If I put this down, I'll never pick it up. If I don't do this, it's set in cement for the rest of my existence. I'll be lost someplace. And my last thought is this: you have to be willing to get so lost there's no coming back. You have to be willing to get so lost there's no coming back. That's the only way you will ever understand that there was never a you going anywhere to begin with. That's the only way you'll ever know that. I'll see you Wednesday.